Hello. Okay. I think that should be it. I don't know why that got unselected. That's strange. Things that never get changed suddenly got changed. Weird. Okay. Alright. We'll give it a moment to see who, if anybody, comes on. I think I need to adjust my camera here anyways, a little bit. Let's see. If you're on, please, say something. Introduce yourself. Always fun to be recognized. We're just going to go over some of the commonly used equipment and whatnot. I think I like that. Sure, that should work for focus. What are we thinking? Yeah, that looks in focus to me. All right. So I think the first thing that we will go over, make sure. Yep. Okay. Hey there, Brad. So I think the first thing we'll go over probably is paints. Paints are one of the more common questions. Then we'll move on to brushes, and this is just generally going to be kind of an equipment overview, what I like, what I don't like, why I use what I use. And yeah, answering any questions if any come up. So yeah. Hey there, Jason. So yeah, we're gonna go over different paints first, and then we'll move on to brushes. Yeah. So all right. So first thing, paints. The main paints that I probably use, by far, are Monument, Procryl, and the Reaper paints. I would say probably 70% Monument, and then probably 25% Reaper, with the rest kind of thrown in. And I'm gonna say almost all the Reaper that I use are skin tones. Probably 90% of what I use them for are the skin tones. Why? They've got the skin tone triads that I really like. They're not necessarily perfect, but they're a really good starting point. So I just automatically know, if I want golden skin, then I grab my golden skin triad, which is, golden shadow, which is the dark one, golden skin, and then golden highlight. Those just give me a good starting point. I almost always am going to have to go higher and lower than those. And skin is just such a realistic thing. Can I mix my own skin tones? Absolutely. You can definitely grab skin tones from other brands and mix darks and shadows. It's just most of the time I'm focusing on being efficient and painting for time and stuff like that. That I tend to grab whatever is easiest to use. And a lot of times for skin, that's this. That said, Jason has over at Monument has started putting out the tutorials on all their color recipes, and he's got some really good skin recipes there that I'm going to be playing around with more, that focus on the pro acryls. It's a lot more underpainting with the greens and reds and stuff like that I'm really excited about. I do some of that, but him putting out the recipes there is really nice, because skin is something that I've struggled a little bit in some of the other brands, but I really like for Reaper. So I'm gonna go over the skin for Reaper real quick, because mainly that's what I use for, and then we'll go over to the Pro Acryl and show you why I like them for like 70% of what I do. I don't thin the Reaper paints very much. Just a little bit. It's usually just like dipping a brush in water. You can see I've got some water right here. I'm just like dipping the brush in there and then just mixing a little bit. Okay. And then, we're just putting it on. I would not say Reaper is a high coverage paint. It's a paint you're gonna want more than one layer, where some of these other paints you can kind of get away with only one layer, So the dark skin triad. Yeah, I saw the figure you did with that. It turned out really well. The one, I think she's sitting on the ground, right? Yeah. So the dark skin triad is a really nice one. So you know we're starting out with the dark. I think I have the dark skin triad. Dark skin. Yep. Yeah. Dark skin is hard to do. It's got some purples in it. You know, it's hard to know how bright to go on dark skin. I need to change my water. Oh lordy. So you know, then when you're moving up in triads, if you're gonna layer it, I really recommend that you mix some of, like, don't just go from one to the other to the other. It's gonna be way too big of a jump. You're gonna want to mix some intermediate tones, and you can just see that it just creates a real. That is too dark, isn't it? No worries. Just bump that up a little bit. There we go. Okay. So you can see it just a nice transition of darks and lights. Did I jump brightnesses too much? I don't, it feels too bright to me. There we go. I'm happier with that. Okay. So yeah, so then you're just gonna work it up and you're gonna add a little bright. And when you're painting at a higher level, you're definitely going to need to go darker and lighter than a triad, but a triad is a really nice starting point. And that's why I like the Reaper skin tones. Okay, so you can see you get that nice golden skin triad for the Reaper. Okay, so 90% of what I use Reaper for is the Reaper triads. Some of the earth tones sometimes I like the khakis and stuff like that. They make it easy, but 90% is that. So the bulk of what my painting is done with really is the Pro Acryl these days. They're just such a nice line of paint. At this point, we've got a really broad range of colors. You know, when we started out, we had enough that technically you could kind of paint anything, but it wasn't always the nicest way. You were gonna have to blend some. You were gonna have to blend some colors, but now you know we've got it where we've got darks and lights and various hues and shades, and don't get me wrong, you're still gonna blend some, but it's not like I don't have a color even remotely like what I'm looking for. So what's the advantage of the Pro Acryl? First of all, they're very smooth. They're fairly thin out of the bottle. I would say they're probably about the same thinness as Reaper. So somewhere in that range. They're definitely not as thick as, say, a P3. P3 is very thick in the bottle. The nice thing about the Pro Acryl is just that the pigment is super rich. There's a lot of times that, look at that. I mean, it just goes down so nice and easy. There's a lot of times that I can get away with just one coat on something. You know, and when you can get away with only one coat, such a huge time saver. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I do a lot of things with the Pro Acryl, because if I can get away with one coat, or on a more difficult color like a yellow, if I can get away with only 2 coats instead of 27 coats. So some of these brands have really weak yellows, and it's going to take you a million coats to put them down. But you know, the Pro Acryl yellow isn't magic. It's not going to go down over a dark color like black. It's not going to go down in one coat over that, but it is going to take less coats than some of the others. So I like them because they have such good even coverage. They also really support the styles of painting that I like to do, which they have a longer dry time. So, you know, if I'm going to feather something out, you know, then I can do that. I don't have to worry about the edge on it drying so fast. So see, look at that. Caught that edge? I even waited a while. Okay. So it gives you plenty of options. It's not a really fast drying paint. Some of the brands, I feel like Citadel is a really fast drying paint, in which it's really hard to do something like a two brush blending or something like feathering an edge with that, just because it dries so quickly. So it's got enough. It's exactly. That's right, Brad. I said they make you feel like you're a better painter. It's just so many things get easy. I'm not trying to just go on like a Procurl is the greatest paint, but it just makes a lot of things easier. I was talking to another painter, Cindy Heaton. If you're not following her on Facebook or something, check her out. She does a lot of great work, and as she said, you know, just doing the blending just feels so easy for some reason. Like, you're not even sure why. I remember the first project I was using them on was the 2019 GaryCon special edition fig that was going up for auction. It actually ended up with one of the what's his last name? Gary, the one of the Gygax kids. It actually ended up, they bought it for auction. And I was painting, and I remember I was using these jade, the jade triads and blues and all these kind of stuffs, and they were blending together. And I remember going out to my wife, and I was like, I don't understand why this is blending. Like, it's blending, but I don't understand why. And it was just this really cool feeling of like painting was easier for no particular reason, and it just made a lot of things just easier. So yeah, I mean, you're still gonna need to take small steps and stuff like that. But you know, the advantage is it supports the way I paint well. I can say, oh, I don't know anybody who's used them that doesn't like them. They make things easier. Okay, so they come in, you know, slightly bigger bottles these days. Which bottles? These bottles, which are 22 milliliters, right? Yep, 22 milliliters. If I have a gripe, if I have any gripe with them, it's the lids, and I know they now offer several different lid designs now, so I need to try some of the others out. But I don't think they fit on the old style bottles, unfortunately. The lids, I don't know. They tend to collect the paint right there. You really need to dab it off. So I know Jason has talked about this. So if you close it right there, you're gonna end up with that little bead right there. You've got a few options. You can dab it on your palette, but then I find you really need to dab it off to get it fully off. So yeah, the flip tops. I need to try some of the flip tops. I have flip tops in the Vallejo Metallic series. They're really nice. Oh, one of the other things about the Procurls is that the bright colors are very bright. Like, they're very vibrant. Some of them almost feel fluorescent almost. They're so bright. They're not fluorescent, but they're this this teal here, this turquoise, super vibrant. When you put it on, it just pops. Turquoise is one of those, when it's paired with the right color, you'll see it across a room. Like, I was talking with Aaron Lovejoy when we were at the Atlanta figure show, and we were talking about like what makes different figures pop. And you know what? Sometimes there's just certain colors that when you see them, they just catch your eye across the room. And a really vibrant turquoise is one of them. You know, a really sharp, vibrant red. You know, the bold pyrrole red. These are the colors that when you use them kind of as your primary color, they're just gonna pop. Like, you'll be looking past a set of figures and it'll just catch your eye. And that's one of the nice things about these is that they do have that just intensity to them where you're just like, oh my gosh, what is that? Totally agree, Brad. I would love to see a monument fluorescence. Love fluorescent colors. Right now, my favorite fluorescence, I've tried a few different ones. I kind of go back and forth my favorite fluorescence right now since that was broached. Or either I actually really like the Createx fluorescents because they're super thin. They airbrush really well. Yeah, look, you know what? Let me finish up Monument. I don't know that before I go on to fluorescence, I started to take a tangent. I don't know that I have much more to say. That they're really my favorite paint. The tops is probably the biggest gripe that I have, but it's not a big one. You just kind of have to adjust for them. You just have to know that you're going to be picking a little paint off the top sometimes. It's not a big deal. It's an adjustment. Otherwise, I really like the tops. I like that they have nice cases to store the tops in, or to store the bottles in. This one over here is the Monument rack that stores the tops. I'm a big fan of storing things vertically. It saves a lot of space. I have 200-300 paints sitting in front of me, and I can reach any of them in a moment's notice. Okay, so I think that's pro acryl. The only thing I think the actual paint doesn't do particularly well compared to something like P3. I think dry brush, but it's not bad for it. It's a little thin for that. It's not great. Yeah. So, but I would say I probably still use them most of the time when I'm dry brushing, just because they're handy, and I love the saturation and the blending of them. I don't know what kind of magic he snuck in those bottles in general, but they're pretty crazy. Oh, I forgot to talk. Let's talk Transparence real quick. So the other thing that that the Monuments have, and most brands are now coming out with some version of these, is the Transparence. Right? Steinile Res is so good. Like, I gotta tell you, Jason, if the Monument primer is better than Steinile Res, that'll be quite the accomplishment. Steinile Res is pretty nice. It's on the list to talk about here in a moment. I'd be more than willing to give it a shot after how well the Pro Acryl does in general, though. Ooh, ours are better. Bold claim putting out there by Monument. We'll have to do a review and see. Transparents are super cool. I've been using Transparents for a long time. I was using them before Monument came out with them. I was using War Colors, came out with a whole transparent line that I have. Yeah, so Transparents, one of the really cool things is they allow you to kind of cheat on the blending, I feel like. You can push the contrast between layers to where, let me grab the blue since I've been messing with blue. There's two kinds of ways that I use Transparents. Basically you can overpaint something where maybe the transition between layers is a little bit sharper than you want, and then if you layer the transparents over them, then it really helps kind of tone that down a little bit, and they blend together a little bit more in the end. So if we've got this where some of the blending there isn't perfect, but you take it and you're going to run this over it, then it's going to help blend that all together. You'll lose some of the contrast. So if I'm using this technique, if I know that I'm going to be using this technique, then what I'll do is I'll paint much brighter than I want it to end up, so that when I knock it down a little bit with the transparent, it's going to blend together more. The other thing that the transparents are great for is OSL. They contribute there, especially when you mix them with a fluorescent. They work really well there. So yeah, I'm sure Jason probably has lots of other uses. They're great for doing things like wood, leather, stuff like that, where like paint it super high contrast and then glaze a brown transparent over it, and it just looks fantastic. So yeah, the transparents are a super cool trick that I like using a lot. All right, Jason, I'm looking forward to the primer now. That's going to be a lot of fun to try out. Right? Yeah, transparents are awesome. All right, since we touched on them, let's go over and hit up fluorescence. Fluorescents are a great way to just really kick the saturation up of any color. If you've got a green and you just really want it to just pop, mix a little bit of fluorescent in, and it's gonna kick it to 11. They're very, very transparent typically. If you try to put a fluorescent over a dark color, it just won't show up. You can see on golden here, golden are really cool for their colors. This is an actual paint swatch basically of what it looks like over this. So you can see it doesn't cover hardly at all. It's got very low coverage. So you're going to want to paint something white. Let's kind of get that. Let's do a sample here. You're going to want to paint something white, and then let's do this. Let's make this white, and then we'll leave this blue over here, and I'll show you what happens when we go over it. We'll use an airbrush here, and we'll just kind of dry this. Yeah, what's your favorite thing to use the transparents for, Jason? Like, what's your go-to where you're like, I've got to use a transparent there? Alrighty, I think that's dry. Yeah, so if we take one of our fluorescents, I like the golden, I like the Createx. Ooh, that may need to be shaken more. That came out looking a little rough. I do have a vortex mixer over here. See my vortex mixer? Oh, that's good. Yeah. Putting that's one of the things that I would say really took me to that next level was adding different hues in the shadows. When you're starting out and you're just going one tone is your shadow tone, one tone is your mid-tone, and one tone is your highlight. You really kind of stay, I think, at a certain level of painting, and then when you figure out that you can add all these kind of neat hues into the shadows, it really kicks your painting up a notch. When you start adding those purples and blues and greens and reds into these shadows, it gives them a lot more depth, and it makes the overall miniature just look a lot better. Honestly, without a lot of work. You just basically need to glaze things into the shadows. So here's a great example. If we take let's take some of this transparent purple. Take just a little bit of this. And let's take some of it and these are really strong, so we're going to thin it down quite a bit. And then, if we just wanted to come in here and just give him some, in the shadows here, and we just start working some of this purple in the shadows. It's a good, especially on a blue tone right here, you can add it without really drastically altering your tone, and it blends so well because it's that transparent. You get some of the color without losing everything to it. Whereas with an opaque color, when you paint it over there, it's a layer on top. So instead of the light filtering through the transparency and adding to it, we overlay it. All right. So, which is very much like we're going to do with, there we go. That's better. Sometimes you really need to keep your paints mixed, folks. If you've never used a vortex mixer, I got to tell you, they're so nice. Like, some of my paints, I used to really think the problem was this is really crappy paint until I put it through the vortex mixer and I realized, holy crap, I wasn't mixing it like nearly enough. and the paint was a lot better. It just wasn't getting mixed. All right, so this is a fluorescent. All of these are going to have this property I'm about to show you where they're somewhat transparent and they just don't show up well against darker colors. So if we put this on a darker color, you can see how it doesn't really, we can see it, but it's not really popping. It's looking kind of just gross over that blue. But when we put it over a lighter color, you can immediately see how it's really gonna pop. These airbrush especially well. So when you really want something to pop, mix a little bit of this in and add it over a lighter color. These are great for doing lighting effects. If you're gonna do, you know, a fire effect, take whatever colors you're using and just mix some of the fluorescent in. You don't need to use all fluorescent, but just mix some of it in, especially when you're photographing, because then when you're photographing, the lights in the camera will actually pick up this color, the fluorescence, especially well, and the mini will much more look like it has an actual glow with the fluorescence. So they're really good for doing lighting effects, because you can just see how that just looks almost like it's glowing right there. But see how bad this looks over a dark color on this side. So this is the same thing as this, but just doesn't cover over a dark color. So fluorescence, I recommend either Createx or Golden right now. Those are two of the best for that. I have, just a second. Let me address that in a moment. Other brands that I have fluorescence in that I've tried, the new AK 3rd generations. Yeah, it's okay. It's not great. The thing that overall this product line, I spent, I don't know, 50-60 bucks trying different paints from this product line and just really wasn't impressed. I think the thing that bothered me most was that their consistency was inconsistent. Okay, have a good one, Jason. Enjoy dinner. I hear you got to obey the boss. So the thing about this line that bothered me the most was that the consistency was inconsistent. Some of the colors were really thin, some were really the best dealer sealer. Oh yeah, I'm getting to that. Trust me, I'm getting to that. Yeah, but overall, some were thin, some were thick, and I just didn't feel like, I felt like I was fighting them more. Whereas like the Pro Acryl and even the Reaper, like the first time you use those colors, it just feels like they're helping you out. Like you don't have to change the way you're doing things. It's just like the paint is just automatically acting the way that it should. Whereas the more I use these, like I tried to devote myself to using them for one project and got about halfway through and I was like, this is miserable. Like I'm not enjoying painting with these at all. Despite trying to make myself use them and just couldn't. So I don't really like those for fluorescence. The blue fluorescent, blue is a hard color in general. This is Vallejo. All of the Vallejos that I've had in general for fluorescence, I don't like. I've used their air fluorescence. I've used their model color. Their yeah, I think those are. I don't know. I've used several. I don't know. They're very thick compared to others, and most of the time when I'm doing the fluorescent type things, you really want them to be thin. And I don't know. They're not nearly as good to me. I much prefer the Createx over the Vallejo, the Game Color Green and Yellow. Yeah, I'll have to try them. It was the red that I had in one of them that was just, oh my gosh, it was junk. Blue is a bad color for fluorescent anyways. I had a chemist tell me there's actually no such thing as blue fluorescent, and that this is just a bright blue as opposed to fluorescent, which is actually a certain kind of chemical. Okay, let's move on. We've talked to paints. If you're gonna dry brush, the absolute best dry brushing, P3, they're a little bit thicker. So I think they dry brush a little better, but I would not buy them just for dry brushing. I do like a few of their colors. Mimnoth White Highlight is one. There's a few others, but overall, there's just no real significant reason to go over with these for any particular reason. Washes. I like Army Painter washes and I like Citadel washes. I put all the Citadel washers in dropper bottles because I don't like spilling a pot and blowing $25 a wash or whatever it is. I don't use washes a ton. I started off with Secret Weapon washes, but I don't know, they stain really badly compared to these. So yeah, most of the days, if I'm going to use washes, it's going to be Citadel or Army Painter. Citadel has a wider range of colors, I feel like. So, but I put them in dropper bottles for sure. These are just cheap dropper bottles. Every once in a while, I use some of the new contrast paint. That's what this is. This is Snake Bite Contrast. And I'll tell you the main place that I found I like to use it is on like little bags and little straps. Yeah, Seraphim Sepia has some good uses. It's a great color when you're throwing out some leather tones. Right, I'd agree with that, Brad. The paints are fine. The paints remind me almost identically of Reaper though. Like they're very, very close to Reaper paints. So this is Snakebite leather. I really like using this on little like pouches and whatever. So I would never paint like a broad area with this. But you know, when you're doing a little pouch that has a lot of different crevices and stuff like that, it can be a great little time saver. And then once it's dry, what I'll do is I'll mix some of this with a brighter color and just give it some highlights like that. So, you know, be smart about it. Don't let it pull up where it's not supposed to pull up. Just pay attention. But you know, that's a leather bag that, you know, with two seconds worth of highlights after that looks totally fine for the majority of things. So that's about the only time I ever really use the contrast paints is that little leather straps, things like that. So I might, but the thing with the contrast paints is you have to have a brighter color over it. So what I will tend to do if I'm going to do something is I will give it kind of a rough highlight and shadow if I'm going to do that. And then I haven't had any problem putting the contrast paint over Steinheil Res. So that's, yeah, I don't own any Citadel primer. I don't have a problem with it going over anything, to be honest with you. So yeah. So, you know, if I was going to do this strap, this would be a great way to start out this strap. You know, just do this, and then come back afterwards. Oops, sorry. And come back afterwards, and just kind of touch it up with some highlights, add some little streaks and stuff like that. I definitely wouldn't use it if there's any kind of broad surface area. So, alrighty, what haven't we touched on? We've touched on this. Okay. If I'm doing like a super high-end painting, and I really, it's not going to be a lot of different colors. Maybe it only has, you know, 4 or 5 different colors in it. Hellboy is one, for example. I've done a couple of Hellboys now, and I really like using the Chimera colors for them. They only have, I think it's 12 colors. So you're going to be mixing a lot, but they're all single pigment colors. There's no color, so they blend incredibly predictably. And you're gonna need to get used to blending with them. They send you a little chart here that's incredibly helpful. Let me grab this. Up. They're just really nice colors. They're the kind of colors that just make everything pop. I would say the color they're best known for is called the red. And literally, the red. So one problem is their bottles tend to clog up a little bit like that. Yeah, so they're really nice. They're a bit thick. Let me put this. These are the kind of paints that, like, I wouldn't recommend this if you're a if you're like an army painter or a tabletop painter, but if you want to like go and win competitions, this is a great paint to have just because they're so vibrant and you're not going to get these muddy colors unless you really try to. The red is just a color that stands out from across the room. Like, you paint something with that and somebody's going to look at that and just be like, holy cow. So it's just a super bright, super strong red. So it I would say the difference between it and red pyro, bold pyro red though is small, but it's there's a difference, but it's quite small. So if you're just painting armies, tabletop stuff, if you're not planning on competing or just really pushing yourself, I don't think there's a reason to get Chimera. If you want to do like the absolute best possible thing, Chimera's not bad to look at. It's just everything's going to take you a lot longer. Because you're going to be mixing a lot. Because they have so few colors. What you're seeing here, I wanted to kind of show you. This is the difference of going over a dark color and a light color. You can see that it makes quite a bit of difference. So when you're going over a light color and going over a darker color, you can definitely see that if you want a real bright color, you need to go over a lighter color. It's one of the reasons that I do a lot of zenithal priming, is that I want more of my highlights and stuff to pop. So do a side by side of Pyro Bold Red and Chimera. I don't know that you're going to see the difference on camera. I've done it before and it's so subtle. I just don't know if you're going to see the difference. I'll do it. It's just super it's pretty small. Like I said, if anything but the top tier, and there's just not a difference to me in these two. All right, so the bottom here is going to be the Chimera color. So this is Chimera. Because all of the Chimeras are single pigment, none of the colors have any white in them. Because of that, all of your yellows, your greens, stuff like that are going to be fairly transparent. Yeah. So I'm saying, I don't think on camera you can tell a difference. The difference in person is there. It's just very, very small. It would just surprise the heck out of me if you could see that on camera. You need a pretty high-end camera to catch that kind of color difference. Alrighty. Sorry, just making sure kids are going to bed. Alright. So, that's the difference there. Let me think. What else we got? I think we're wrapping up paint here pretty soon. I think that's it on paint. Real quick, let's talk oil paint. A lot of people are starting to get into oils. If you're PA... Alright, you guys think the bottom one looks a little more orangey? Yeah, maybe. The Pro Acryl looks a little more red? Yeah, maybe. It's like I said, it's very slight. It's yeah. So I think you know what? I wonder what happens. Here's what we'll do. I'm gonna take some of the probe acryl and put it over this, and then let's take this. So the question is now, can we see where one stops and one starts? Let's make sure it's good and dry before we make a judgment here. Alrighty. So this bottom swatch is half of one and half of the other. I don't know, guys. It's pretty hard to tell. So yeah, there's a slight sheen difference. That's one thing that's very evident when they're side by side, when they're half. The top was Pro Curl, right? Yeah. Yes. The top one is definitely a little more matte. The bottom is a little more glossy. You can see that in person, especially because the light, when I tilt it a certain way, is reflecting off the bottom, but really not off the top. So they're very, very close. Yeah. Alrighty. Let's move on. Let's talk oils real quick. Oils are becoming popular for some people. They're a lot of fun. I always say that acrylics is like Red Bull and rocket fuel, and oils is like sipping whiskey. When you make a mistake or something with acrylics, you know, it's pretty much instant. Like you're gonna be painting over it. Whatever. Oils is like just chilling and having a good time, and it you know, it's gonna take hours, maybe even a day or two to dry, depending on how you do it and whatnot. It's a very different style of painting. You're gonna need some oils, some brushes, and then by far the best paint thinner that I found is Mona Lisa here. None of the stuff is terribly expensive. This much Mona Lisa will last you ages. It'll I mean a year probably or more. And this much paint is gonna last you just, yeah, unless you're James, and then that's like a week or maybe a day. So yeah, so oils are a lot of fun. They're a very different style of painting. If you're interested in oil painting, go YouTube James Wapple, and he will show you everything you ever wanted to know about oil painting. Hit him up on Facebook. Yeah, so he's the man to go for if you want to learn oil painting. He does a lot of oil painting. He's very good at it. I don't know, 10% of my work is maybe oil, depends on how I'm feeling, what I'm doing. It's another tool in the thing. I really like using oil washes for larger figures. If you saw the dragon that I did recently, that was done with an oil wash, because you can control a little better. You can let it dry, and then what I'll do is I'll take a Q-tip or a makeup pad here with some of that thinner on it, and you can literally just wipe the wash off of the high spots. Just literally wipe it off, and then wait for it to cure fully, and then paint over it and do what you want. So it's very easy to control as a wash and everything. So I tend to do a lot of washes oil, especially on larger figures. Or if I'm just straight up painting a larger figure, I'll do it with oils. Sometimes it depends. All right, I think we're done with paint. Sealer, I would say 99.9% of the time, I seal with AK Ultra Matte. They just released their quote 3rd generation matte sealer, which I don't know. They didn't come out with an Ultra Matte, so I'm tempted not to mess with it because I really like this. If you've ever compared something that is done with dull coat or something else, and you put it side by side with this, dull coat actually looks shiny compared to this. This does not look this is very matte, and it's got enough of the talc or whatever their matting agent is in it that you can actually feel it. If you spray this on a mini and then touch the mini, it feels velvety. So this just, it's like any other varnish. It just, yeah, it looks white, dries clear. You know, nothing special about it. Goes through an airbrush very well. Yeah. So that's what 99.9% of my figures get some kind of coating of. It really is. It's straight up amazing. I haven't talked about metallics because I don't really use metallics that much these days. Scale 75 metallics are okay. The Vallejo Metal Color series. Yeah, I know you're a fan of the Model Masters. I've never tried it. Yeah. I got the Ultramat and just fell in love with it and hadn't tried that. I'm trying to look at my shelf for metallics because I never use them anymore. Probably the best of the Vallejo Metal Color. That's a very specific line. They're in a bigger bottle. Those are good. If I'm doing a larger piece, I've done this before, which is kind of fun. This is Rub and Buff. You literally, it's real thick. And let me see. It's kind of cool. You can put it on your finger, even. Works well like that. Here we go. Let's take something like this. This is a little Oogie Boogie dice. We're gonna wipe most of this off though. And then just wipe it on like that. Yeah, I wish they would add some golds too. And then as you kind of do this, it'll shine. And it's got a really nice shine to it. Rub and Buff does. So for something like this, this is probably easier than paint. And gives just a really cool look to it. Very, very metallic-y. Very nice look. That I think does better than straight acrylic paint. This is Rub and Buff. They basically have gold and silver. Silver leaf, gold leaf. That's it. But it's a really neat product. It's cool to have it kind of one in your staple of products to have. It's cheap. You can get it on Amazon. So, and just produces such a nice look. See how well that shines? So, the waxy oil base, I believe. The wax metallic, yeah. So, yeah. Okay, that's metallics. That's that primer. Until Jason convinces me on his new primer, apparently. The only primer that I use these days is Stynyl Res, except no substitutes. They actually rebrand Stynyl Res as a couple of other things. What's one brand? I forget. Somebody rebrands Stynyl Res as their own with permission, but they do. This airbrushes or brushes totally fine. It self levels. It's got good adhesion. Dries in 10 minutes, which is another big thing. If you're using Vallejo primer, it really needs a full day to dry. The Mecha primers are decent. I'll give you that. I've used them as well. They're not bad. If I wasn't using this, I would probably use the Mecha primers. That's probably true, yeah. So, trying to think if there's anything else. Airbrushes or brushes. I really don't have anything bad to say about it. I would say on metal, it you need to give it a full day on metal or it's going to scratch off fairly easy. But I haven't found hardly anything that doesn't scratch off that easy on metal. Most things on metal minis just scratch off fairly easy. If you do an aerosol primer and wait like a week, some of them are near bulletproof on metal, but they need a long time. The longer you wait on metal in general, in my experience, the better. I have let things that were fairly delicate prime for a couple of weeks because I knew I was going to need to do them at some point, and it helps. All right, what else we got? We've talked about. All right, I think we're out of paints. Let's talk paintbrushes real quick. Paintbrushes. All right. There's a few different camps of brushes. Some people really like cheap brushes. These are number 8 from Hobby Lobby. They're super cheap. They're nylon brushes. Yeah, I think Brad, Devious Dungeons over there, is a fan of the nylon brushes, but I believe he uses folk art from Walmart. Nothing wrong with these. Just you are gonna need to replace or restore the tip periodically. Yeah, I know you're camp cheap. Um, so there's nothing wrong with these. I have never had that great of luck doing fine details. I always feel that I get the tip curl when it's the worst time. like just when I want to go put down a fine detail, that's when it decides to curl on me. So but there's lots of good artists that use those. I would say the majority of artists, not all of them, but the majority. I just realized I was looking at one of my brushes. It looks like I got hit with something black right there. That's weird. Where did that come from? Um, I would say the majority of artists out there use um, some form of Kolinsky Sable brushes. That's what these are. These are Raphael. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was put this in front of this to get a little contrast. There we go. This is yeah, that's like Stockholm syndrome, man. You're learning to work around, learning to like your captors, even though there are better options. Kolinsky Sable brushes are natural hair brushes from a particular creature called a Sable. Um, it's a Kolinsky Sable. It's somewhere in Russia, I think, right? Somewhere over there, I think. Um, they hold and release paint very well. These are probably a year old or more. You can see the tips are still just razor sharp on these guys. No tip curl, no splitting. They're good. These are Raphael 8404s. I've tried a bunch of different brands. Personally, I like the 8404 the best. But there's a lot of other good brands. Monument makes their ones. What are they called? The igniters, maybe, I think. They've got ones. Da Vinci has ones. I don't like the Winsor Newton Series 7s because they're very, very expensive. They're about double the price that I paid for these. These I got around 8 a brush, more around there. And the problem with the Winsor Newton Series 7s is that there's good ones, but there's also very bad ones, and it's very hard to know the difference before you monument igniters. There we go. And it's very hard to know the difference before you're using it. And so if you get a Series 7, make sure you're getting one from somewhere that you can return it. Rosemary Co brushes are good value. I'm pulling one out here, I think. Trying to find one. Sure, I've got one over here. I used Rosemary Co for a long time before I switched to this is a teeny tiny one. I don't use these small of ones anymore. This is a Rosemary Co. These are very slender tips. The body on this guy, it has a very large body. On a brush, this metal part down here is the ferrule. This is the body of brush, and this is the tip. I prefer a brush with a larger body because I don't tend to use very thin paint. And if you use very, very thin paint and you have a big body, it tends to flood out. I use thicker paint so it holds better in the body. Rosemary & Co. is a very thin bodied brush. It just doesn't go as thick as this. So if you're a very thin bodied painter, Rosemary & Co. is probably a great choice for you. They are stupid cheap. You can find some of their brushes, $4 or $5 a brush for Kolinsky Sable hair, which is just amazing. So yeah, that's brushes. That's normal brushes. I always have at least one kind of big giant throwaway. This is just a nylon hair. It's like a number 12. It's a huge brush. Because you're gonna need, if you're priming a giant figure and you don't have an airbrush or something happens and you need to use a brush for something, don't do it with your number one. Grab a giant brush and just get it on there fast. Like there's no reason to make your life heck. So I think this is a folk art. No, I don't know what this is. I got it from something. I've had this thing, I don't know, 3 years probably. Been beat to heck. And I mean, I'm stabbing, I'm abusing it. Get something you don't care about, but that's giant and can save you time. All right, other brushes. This is a makeup brush. This is a Rosemary Co Smush brush. Same kind of thing. These are great for dry brushing. They're makeup brushes, so essentially, they're supposed to blend dry pigments, dry paint kind of thing, which is basically what women do on their faces. These are an absolute game changer for dry brushing. I'd say the Smush brush is probably slightly better than the actual makeup brush, but this is a $1 brush. This is like a $7 brush, I think. So the vast majority of times use this. Yeah, you can go get these $1 to $2 at Walmart, any kind of good store. This is an e.l.f. eye crease brush. This is the one that I use most of the time. Sometimes I also use these guys tend to go fast because they're so short, but they're great for kind of doing detailed brushes. This is a concealer brush, e.l.f. concealer brush, but they're really short, so they tend to get stiff fast. The nice things about if you want to clean these, if they get all crusty, because they're going to with dry brushing, they're going to get nasty and crusty. You can use alcohol, or my favorite lately has been acetone. I'll just take a little bit of acetone, put it in a glass bowl, and then you just work that in there. It's going to get absolutely any of the paint. You see, I thought that was clean, and it's starting to go gross and nasty on me. And so you do this, it's just going to take it right back to new pretty much. Oh my gosh, look at that. I thought that was clean. Huh. Oh wow, that's really getting stuff. This brush may recover yet. What I normally do is, if I'm doing these, I will go buy, 3 or 4 each. Man, I can't believe this much is coming out of this. Good gracious. That's crazy. The last time I cleaned this brush, I was not using acetone, I was using alcohol. So what you're seeing right now is the difference between what alcohol left and what acetone is getting out. Don't ever use acetone on your natural hair brushes. It will not work out well for you. But yeah, that brought that back almost like new. Wow. That's pretty cool. I was about to throw that guy away. Learn something new. With acetone, you can either let it dry or I'll just wipe it out. Acetone is super handy to keep around if you get paint on something that isn't fabric and you want to get it out. Just take some acetone and it'll wipe up nicely. It just, be careful, it might wipe something else up. All right. Let's talk a little bit about prepping tools now. Various tools that I have to prep. You're going to want some sort of snippers. These just used to snip off sprue, stuff like that. I keep a surgeon's scalpel. As far as snippers goes, these are Xeron. I don't remember what model number these are. I don't think they say. They're not. Oh, here we go. The 410 micro shear. I've been reasonably happy with these. If you're gonna do stuff on sprue though, you probably want nicer clippers. I'm not going to talk too much about clippers because I don't do a lot of stuff on sprue. If you're doing stuff on sprue and you don't have nice clippers, don't clip right next to it. Clip a distance from it and then come and take a hobby knife or something and get a lot closer to it. I like having a scalpel on hand sometimes if I'm going to shave something off. Then they're very handy because you can really get a nice cut. But be careful, you can really do some damage to yourself if you slice. This is made to cut human skin, so it will do that very well. Yeah, this particular handle, I can't remember what this handle is called. It's a dental tool hand. It's a dentist handle, I believe. for the, I don't know why, but it's good. You can really get a good grip on it. I don't like round handles on things either because they roll and you can't index on them. This is by far the favorite set of hobby knife that I've had. One of the same reasons, it doesn't roll, so it's not around. And then when you've got it in your hand, because it has that shape to it, your hand knows the orientation and you can get much more precise cuts than you can. And then the other thing is, on those kind where you twist to tighten it, I find that inevitably I always end up with, I was going to see if, no, okay, clean this up at some point. I always end up with it loosening at the exact wrong time. Like whatever the worst time for it to loosen up on me, that's when it'll loosen up on me. The nice thing about these is when you want to change, you just do that, throw a new one in there. Yeah, and the change is both fast and super safe. It's been much more reliable than I think I still have one around here. Maybe this one. No, that's not one. I have one. Oh, here we go. This kind. Hate this inevitably, because what happens is you're using it up here, right? Which means your thumb is constantly touching the part that will twist it open. And inevitably it's going to loosen at the wrong time. And then it's round, so you might be slightly twisted in one direction or the other and not really realize it. But with this thing, you can really get a good grip, and you always know exact. Your thumb just always indexes on exactly the same spot. It's much better. It's Fiskars. It's just a much better hobby knife. They're not expensive. They're $7 or $8, and you're gonna it'll last forever. You'll use it forever. It's just a much better product. You know, don't spend hundreds on minis. Maybe hundreds on paint and balk on some tools that are gonna make your life a lot easier. So yeah, hate this. I don't even know why I still have it. You know what? You guys are gonna witness me. This is going in the trash right now. This old blade too. All right. What else we got here? All right. When doing seam scraping, this is a Squadron Products seam scraper. It's got a sharp edge. They make dental tools that are the same thing and much cheaper. If you Amazon or eBay dental tools, you can find these scrapers. They're fantastic for scraping seams off. Also dealing with seams, sanding sticks. You can Amazon sanding sticks, and they're these little thin sanding sticks that are super nice. You can really get in there and get some things. They come in all different grits. Very handy. You can do really detailed work, and you can do really rough work with them. Different width, different grits, stuff like that. Besides sanding sticks, these are a set of files. Come in all different sizes. These are diamond files. These are the cheapest of cheap Pittsburgh from Harbor Freight. I think this entire package was like $3 or $4, and they're fantastic. They're so good. They have such a wide variety of sizes, and the tips are sharp, and you've got flats and rounds and ovals and everything else that for $3 or $4 it's an absolute steal compared to something like Army Painter, which is like 4 or 5 times that price for like $3. So these are fantastic for dealing with seams as well. What else we got here? We're running out of tools. This is just a needle tool, it's called. Matt, what's his name? I don't remember his last name. DiPietro? Yes. Matt DiPietro. He recommended these. I like them. They're good. You've got good support. If you're gonna do any kind of sculpting, modeling, you're gonna want something like this. Helps to push stuff down. You can use it to unclog paint tips, stuff like that. It's just a general good all-purpose tool to have sitting around. They're on Amazon. They're a few bucks. This is another kind of dental tool. Got kind of a spatula kind of thing / knife kind of thing. This isn't sharp though. And then this just helps. This just helps moving modeling clay to fill in gaps and seams and stuff like that, and really get it in just the right spot. You can probably find something like this and this in a set of dental tools for much cheaper than I paid for these two, because I was not aware that dental tools were the same thing. So these are both Squadron products. I'm telling you now, don't waste the money on the Squadron products version of these. Go Google dental tools and find some that look useful to you, and you'll thank me, because they are useful. They really are. The other thing that's useful for moving the clay around when you're trying to fill in gaps is these color shapers. They have a silicone tip on them, and you can just really smooth things out and get it really pushed down in there. So color shapers, the best price I've actually found on these are at Michael's. If you go to Michael's, they're in their like clay working section with like Sculpey and stuff like that, and they're fantastic. Really like these. As far as actual clay goes, for filling gaps, this is my favorite stuff. It's Epoxy Sculpt. It's fantastic. It's water cleanup. Cleans up with water, it self-hardens, it doesn't need to bake. So this is like green stuff, but way better. Like if you're still using green stuff, throw it away and go get this, and your life will just instantly get better. You'll be like, why didn't I do this sooner? It's that much better. It truly, really is. Because once you get it in there and kind of work with it, you can take a wet brush and instantly smooth it over. I don't think I have anything that needs a gap filled right now. But you can just, you mix two parts together, one part, second part, knead it together like green stuff, and then yeah, stick it in there, use a wet brush. I think this much is like $20 and will last you forever for doing just gap filling, stuff like that. If you're going to do actual modeling with it, it may go through it, but not for actual gap filling. Painting handles, I'm almost done, I think. Painting handles, these are the hobby holders. I really like them. They're just so nice. Having everything on bottle caps is so handy, because I automatically stick everything on a bottle cap, and then it just, yeah, it's just super easy. They also have a big handle that comes off them. I don't tend to use that, but the hobby holder is easily my favorite. I do not at all, even a little bit, like the Games Workshop one. I have one here. This guy. This thing, in my opinion, is total junk. I cannot tell you how many bases I've had pop out of this thing, and always at the wrong time. Some people like them. I guess if you only paint Army Painter, I can kind of understand it, because the bases are at the right angle to fit in those little grooves. If you paint anything else, like, you're playing with fire. I had a teacher, I can't remember who it was, like he like wouldn't let his students use these, because he's like, your figure will pop out of this, it will land in your paint, and then you're hosed. So yeah, I have one of these. I think I might have two of them. Hate them, don't use them, can't stand them. What else do I use? I think that might be it. I was going to talk about airbrushing, but I think I'm going to do that another time. As far as wet palettes go, you've seen this palette. This is the AK Interactive Wet Palette. I like it because it's deep, which means it doesn't require constantly filling up on water, compared to the big one that everybody and their grandmother loves and is crazy expensive. I have one, never use it. Crap. What is that? I can't think. Red Grass. The Red Grass wet palette. Everybody loves it. It's okay. It always dried out on me. You can the Masterson's one, yeah, that's one too. The nice thing about this is it's actually like a 3-layer design. So it's got one sponge which holds a crap ton of water, and then a thinner sponge which wicks the water up from that sponge, and then the paper. So it just works really very well. They're cheap. The whole thing's $15 maybe. You can definitely make your own. There's nothing wrong with that. Some paper towels, some sponge, some parchment paper. It works well. I like this one because the lid goes on and then seals down really well. And that way, if I really need to keep something or if I want to travel with it, it's fine. I don't need a big one, so I'm not really worried about that aspect of it. I tend to not keep paint over multiple days usually. I find that the paint after day number 1 is usually fairly worthless, no matter what wet palette. Sorry, that was bugging me. Anything else worth talking about? Oh, how I attach. I'm probably the only person in the universe using this, but it's been so good. So how I attach figures to bottle caps when I'm using this. I hate doing it with blue tack or orange putty or any of that stuff because inevitably it gets so warm eventually that it comes off for me. Like it always comes off at the worst time, and there are people like, I've never had it come off. I don't know how that's possible, but it always comes off for me. So this is the Gorilla mounting tape. Oh my gosh, this stuff is amazing. It really works well because like this ain't coming off. This ain't coming off at all unless I want it to come off. And then if you just twist it, this comes right off. And then that just peels off nice and clean. Like it's never coming off accidentally, but it comes off intentionally super easily. One roll lasts quite a long time because you don't want to cut, you don't want to use a ton of it. Like you're just really looking. I think I cut too big of a piece last time. Yeah, this stuff is amazing. So yeah, so I just usually cut a strip like this, and that's enough to hold a huge figure in place. And it comes off super easily. Yeah, it does come in squares, but the roll is really nice. I've had this roll now for months, and yeah, it hands down this is one of my best finds as far as this, because the blue stuff just always comes off at the wrong time. It's so annoying. Or you have to use like a metric ton of the blue stuff, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the blue stuff. Some people love it. All right. I will do an airbrush, kind of what I'm using for airbrush some other time. Oh, I think the only other thing, I do use a magnifying headset. I've got this one. I've got this one. It depends on exactly what I'm doing. If I'm doing camera work, a lot of times I can't. This one sticks out so much further that it bumps the camera at the angle that I have the camera, so I have to use this one, but I like this one better because I can kind of look around it. But they're both good. Highly recommend some sort of magnifying. This one, I feel like the lights are a little brighter on this one, so sometimes even if I'm not using the magnifying, I will take the magnifying portion off of it and just turn on the light, and it helps a little bit. You can see when you're looking down at something, you can see all those details just a little better. Especially when I'm on camera, sometimes I will put this on with the light on and not even the lenses on so that you guys can see better on camera. I think that's it. I'm gonna call it done and done and done and done. Airbrush comes next week. What'd you get? What kind of airbrush? By the way, Everything I'm showing here, I'm not saying you have to have any of this stuff. This is all stuff that I've collected over the years after trial and error of trying a bunch of stuff that I felt like didn't work, and finally settling on a group of products that I'm not trying to upgrade. Like I feel like like I'm not constantly going, you know, oh, I wish I had something better. So Brad, I've never been able to use one of the magnifying glasses. The magnifying like stationary ones. My brush kept hitting it. It always got in the way. The nice thing about this style of magnifier is it's very easy to look around. So you're not always having your vision magnified. It's very easy to look around it. And once you use it for 30 or 40 minutes, you figure out real quickly that you can look off to the side, you can look one way or the other, without it feeling like you're always looking at something magnified. Yeah. Okay. The Patriot, yeah, the Patriot's good. This is a Patriot Extreme. I have a bunch of different airbrushes. This is the airbrush that I use when like I'm gonna spray something really harsh because this thing is just bulletproof. I feel like this thing will spray gravel. Like it's just very difficult to ruin this airbrush. It's pretty ridiculous. The Patriot is such a great brush to start with. It really is. There's a lot of good brushes out there. We'll cover that probably next week or something like that. I think I have one, two, just on hand in the studio right now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different airbrushes. I've got 2 more that somebody's lending me, that I'm sending back. And then I've got 1 more that I ordered to try. Um, you know, on all of this equipment, somebody once told me, do you feel like any of this stuff makes you a better painter? Every once in a while you run into a product that makes you feel like a better painter. But you know, what I've figured out really is that a lot of this, I just enjoy trying different equipment. And part of the hobby to me is trying different equipment. So don't feel bad if you're trying different things and somebody starts giving you crap about you have too many of this or too much of that or whatever. Part of the hobby is just whatever you enjoy it with. You know, however you enjoy it. If you enjoy, you know, trying 5 different brands of paint, then that's part of the hobby to you. It's something you enjoy. Don't let somebody knock you down just because of that. Somebody like Brad over there, Devious Dungeons there, that dude owns like every brand of paint I think imaginable. And that's part of what he enjoys, is that part of the hobby is trying different brands of paint. Exactly, yeah. So don't let somebody give you crap because they're telling you how to enjoy your hobby. Like if you want to try something, you can afford it financially, even if it doesn't quote make you better, or even if it's not something you really quote need, enjoy it. I don't feel like the AK ones are worth the money. I was really excited because I really like most of the AK products. I don't know. I think I gave most of them away. I either gave them away or set them out of sight. They might be in my upper. Yeah, I think I see them up there. I just was not impressed at all. There's definitely no reason. I could not think of a single reason as I was using them to use them over Procryl or Reaper. Like they didn't do anything better that I would ever be like, I should use them for that. I was really fighting them more than enjoying them, to the point that it was making me really irritated. Finally I was like, F this. So I haven't tried those, the Noctura sets. Alrighty, people. I think I'm gonna call it though. I think I'm gonna get off here. So this was just kind of what I'm using, and a lot of people often ask, you know, what are you using and why are you using what you're using and stuff like that. So, alrighty, gentlemen, ladies, boys and girls, I am going to go, I don't know, get a drink of water or something. So, I'm currently painting this guy. For the person who lent me the airbrushes, I'm going to be giving them this figure. This is a Seaman Troll from the Zombie Side Paul Bonner special box set. It's a very, what's the word? There's a lot of character to the mini, but this had by far the worst mold lines I have ever seen. Like every time I started painting, I found another mold line, and it was just really annoying. Like I've not been this annoyed by a mini in forever. So yeah, I'm just hoping he finishes up well because like I'm barely started on him and I'm already kind of tired of him because I spent so much stupid time on prep. So, alrighty. Have a good one, boys and girls, and I will talk to you later.